HDSLR Shooter, your source for news from Premiere Pro World Conference. Brought to you by Adobe, Akidio, Atomos, Blackmagic Design, and Carl Zeiss.
Hi, Clint with HDSLR Shooter. I'm here with Jeff Greenberg, who was a presenter today at Adobe World here in San Jose. Jeff, I sat in on your session. You know, I forget what the title was. It was the last one of the day. What was it called?
I did one on maximizing performance in Premiere Pro. It's a great tool, but us professionals, we need to tweak it just a little bit more so we can get every last bit of oxygen out of that tool.
Let's step back and talk a little bit about your background first.
I was an editor. I worked in LA. I worked a little bit in Philadelphia, where I'm from. But what happened for me is this little strange thing. My father got ill, and I decided I needed to be able to go home at 6 o'clock at night, so I started doing a little bit of education. This is 2000. There's a little company on the East Coast called Future Media Concepts, and I'm their first full-time hire outside of New York, and we have a long, wonderful relationship together. And I end up as their head instructor, and they start doing events, and if you think my presentations were good, it's because I, at the beginning of my career, like all of us, made some classic mistakes. But I've sat in so many rooms, and my question is always the same thing, is if I'm in that room, what makes it worthwhile to be there? What's the best information? I don't really want to talk about myself in a classroom. I want it to be an educational experience. My favorite moment as a teacher is simply this. I want to tell you something so cool it makes you cry. And I'm hoping I did that a couple times with you, Clint.
No, I teared up a little bit. How do you make it your business to stay abreast of everything and be like, kind of that knowledge base?
I can't. It's impossible. I do the same thing we all do. I read the web. I talk to friends. I go to your website when it's about camera stuff. What for me comes down to is I, early in my career, was an Avid guy. I became an Avid trainer. And I also knew Final Cut, and I was a Final Cut trainer. And I was an Adobe trainer. It's the sort of thing, like, if you stop moving professionally, that's a great way to die. It's almost like you got to be a shark a little bit. And I'm a warm, compassionate person. I don't mean to use that shark analogy, but if you stay moving, you'll stay alive. When we go, oh, I can't learn anything new, that's when you start to die at some level. One of the adages I use is, the day you stop learning is the day your brain starts dying, and I just refuse to let that happen. I run an event called the Editors Retreat, editorsretreat.com. It's going to happen in February. I can't tell you where yet. We haven't fully decided. Last year we had some amazing people, both presenters, attendees. We had our keynote, Billy Goldenberg, who cut Argo, cut Pleasantville, cut Heat, cut some of the latest 2 Transformers films. We try at that event, and it's a higher level event. You're just not allowed to come to it. We actually ask you to make an application. We look at who you are. We're trying to put really qualified professionals at that event. It's a lot of fun, and I in a lot of ways, I hope you're interested. If we can figure out a way, I would love to have you guys there.
Oh, we'd love to be there for sure. Now, we've been talking in kind of a general way. Oh, wow, all this stuff, and it was so meaningful to me. But let me break it down a little bit. So then the first thing I want to talk about is, and this is where I was tuned in. Initially, it was the first rule of film school: always use other people's money. And that's what you said. You were like, don't buy a piece of equipment unless you can get it paid for by a client. And you know what? And I cover a lot of gear, and over the last 5 years or so, there has been like this whole thing where gear has turned into almost like designer jeans. Everybody wants them, but they don't really know why they want them. They just know that they want them. And then going to Hawk, and especially some of the younger folks that are out there, they're ransoming themselves and their parents, to buy all this stuff, and they may not even need it. But I appreciated that level of, horse sense and everything like that. Talk a little bit about that, and then let's let that lead into the 5 things.
Okay. I don't even know what the 5 things are, so that'll give me some time. It's really a simple idea. Unless you have money coming in, you shouldn't be buying equipment. And a client should be the one who helps pay for it. Now, if you were really at that point where you go, well, I know I want X, Y, and Z, and I can't afford it, when that client gives you that first deposit, that's when you go out and you can rent it and really start playing with it. But it's just the idea of you don't want to put yourself in a position where you're trying to find food rather than trying to find work. The classic thing is the red cameras. They started this idea that we should all stand in line for a camera. And the thing is it was so democratic and so affordable that the idea of renting it wasn't really going to happen because there were so many of them. I don't know if you remember, for a long time it became, you could do competing quotes and get that price lower and lower and lower and lower. To me, I learned one thing. If I needed gear, I could rent it. Might have a good camera body and rent lenses. I would try and rent the right lenses for work when I needed it. But if I didn't own it, it meant it wasn't sitting on a shelf doing nothing. My general rule is that, you need to stay profitable at the end of the day. It's really important for us as professionals to treat ourselves and our business as professionals. I love this stuff, but I love feeding my daughter and my wife as well. 5 things. I'm going to try and give you guys 5 brief things I will mention at my website, JeffGreenbergConsulting.com. I did a recording for this event. The recording was 20 Premiere Pro tips in 20 minutes. I did about 26 or 27. It's free. I'm a master instructor. You can get my email. You can bug me for the rest of your natural-born lives there. If somebody out there does become a vampire or a werewolf, you're not allowed to contact me anymore. But it's just this idea that I pay attention to tips that, for me, were life-changing when I discovered them. So I'm going to do 2 or 3 here. We'll see if I can do 5. My first one, and these are all Premiere Pro based because this is Premiere Pro world. First one is I want you to click on that piece of music and I want to you to hit the letter G. G for audio gain. It's going to bring up the audio dialogue for gain, and you're just going to type in -15 and hit the enter key, and I've just stopped you from ever deafening yourself as an editor, and you've done it, and you've done it. All of us have done it. Now let's take it one step further. You got a bin full of music, because of course you do, you're organized. You're going to click on the bin, you're going to hit the letter G for the whole bin. You're going to take down the music level of the entire bin and not deafen yourself. There's nothing worse than those sort of little dumb things making a painful mark in your ears, just as you're holding your ears back there right now. So let's see, that's 2. Let's do a number 3. Let's see where I'm going to go with this. Don't use import anymore in Premiere. I'd like you to use a part in the bottom left of the interface. I'm doing it backwards because we're on camera over here. It's called the Media Tool. The Media Tool is a better way to ingest material. If at nothing else, it's visual. It allows you've got the card full of materials that you've transferred and you have no idea. And when you do import, as much as I'm a Mac fan, yes, you can click on it, hit space bar, you can change the way it looks. But the Media Tool will let you look at a clip, hover scrub, but actually JK&L and play through a clip before you've ever brought it into the software. We're going to add another one to it. You're going to add the accent graph, that's what you would call the tilde key, and that's going to make it full screen. So now this little media, it's the media browser in the bottom left corner of the screen, you've now made it full screen and you can look at all that information. Now because we're dealing with card-based material, because we're dealing with file-based, we're going to do one last one. I'm going to have you open up Prelude. In the top button of Prelude, there's a button there that says Ingest. When you hit that Ingest button, it gives you the same exact media browser with one difference. Ask me what the difference.
What's the difference?
Excellent. He did a great job. The one difference is simply this. On the right side, it has the ability to move the files off a card to a location, and you can add a second destination and do what we have to do all the time, offload the material from the cards. But here's the one difference from grabbing it in the Finder or grabbing it in Windows Explorer. It has at the bottom the ability to verify that the files were copied correctly. And if you haven't lived long enough yet in this field, sooner or later, you're going to have a piece of media that gets corrupted. And this copy prevents that from happening. It's going to mean it takes longer, but you'll have copied it to 2 locations safely. And if our business isn't being professional, it isn't getting the work there, we're just burning money. That's that for 5.
That's awesome. That's awesome. But I don't want to tax you any longer. But I know you give out some contact info. You're on Twitter. What's your Twitter?
I'm Film Geek on Twitter. You can actually go to my website, JGreenberg Consulting. I'm not kidding. I give my email out all the time. I'm not afraid of somebody emailing me a question. Look, emails are free. Phone calls cost money. If you want me to get on the phone with you, I will. But I'm going to charge you money for it. It's the old adage, good, fast, cheap, pick 2. Mm-hmm. Norm Holland, who is a dear, dear friend, He runs the editing department at USC, said this to me: good, fast, cheap, pick two. Which one do you want to give up? When you're emailing me because it's free, I'm going to only give you the best of advice, but it's not going to be necessarily fast, because if I'm traveling, if I'm in a classroom, I might be too tired to get back to it. Good, fast, cheap, pick two. Which one you give up? I give my email away for free because I'm happy to help people become empowered, and that's what these tools do. They empower us. Websites like yours empower us. They're great resources. I love those stuff you guys do.
And look this guy up for sure, because I tell you what, you're missing a huge asset if you don't, okay? And thanks a lot, Jeff.
No, totally my pleasure.
HDSLR Shooter, your source for news from Premiere Pro World Conference. Brought to you by Adobe, Akitio, Atomos, Blackmagic Design, and Carl Zeiss.